I'm about to say this, but today I am joined by Todd Glass. Todd, I've been
Hello.
starting these off kind of the same way. Just like to check in on everybody right now. How are you doing over there? Is everything okay?
I'm doing good, and I know sometimes when you do like an interview over the phone or do stand up for an audience, sometimes you're used to the laugh. So I have this now, and whenever if I say something funny that I think needs a little bit of time, I just go. So it fills it in. I've learned little things like maybe if you tell a joke or you're in an interview and there's a weird silence. The audience is waiting for people to laugh, but I'm not putting in canned laughter. Maybe I tell a joke and I'll be like, so it's really been great. How am I doing? Uh, Great. I look. I'm like everybody else. I have days where I get nervous and stuff, but considering, I'm doing okay. My podcast studio happens to be in my backyard. That has been like just a lifesaver.
How? So you started your podcast, the Todd Glass Show, about 10 years ago now. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think we've been doing it 10. I think about 10 years.
And it's part of Nerdist now, which is like a huge, almost like independent
Yeah,
media conglomerate, I guess.
Nerdist became like this craze, which Chris Hardwick started, and then it got bought by Viacom. It got bought from a very, very big company, not Viacom. And then, so Nerdist doesn't have their podcast. They just were too big to have a podcast division. So eventually, I moved to Starburns. So I'm with Starburns now. Not that people can get podcasts anywhere, but I like to be part of something that I don't know, just makes it more fun.
It's interesting. It's interesting you mentioned that. You said it's more fun. I mean, what is the dynamic like being part of like a podcast network like that, as opposed to just doing it, on your own in your backyard?
I do it. I do it alone. I do it at my house. So I don't go to their studio, but it's just because then I can create my own studio. But I think for me, it's just as simple as I don't have to worry about the technical end of it, and that is the part that I'm not great at. So like, Aristotle comes every week. He's basically he's part of the show, but he's also does he's, I guess, the producer. He does the board, make sure it sounds good. And he does a great job. You take a lot for granted that every week you hear everybody. If it's me doing it, I'll be like, oh, I forgot to turn the mic up and then editing it. We do very little editing, but any editing that has to be done, he does. So I just get to enjoy it. So really, the podcast for me is just pure joy. It's a lot of fun to do. I don't get tired of it any more than people go, if like, let's say you have enough money, you take a vacation. No one goes, oh, I'm tired of vacations. Well, maybe some people do, but that's not my point.
The technical end is there is like such a divide between like the creative and technical end of doing any type of project. I think that like it's so much easier now than it ever has been, but it's still like I barely know how to work this shit, and this is like, I plug a camera and a microphone into a computer.
I'm not good at it, but I'm aware you have to learn it or figure out how to get it done. Otherwise, like my theory is, and I just say this to remind myself. I mean, sometimes you think, well, why am I saying this? It's just to remind myself that you need to just spend the right amount of time complaining how hard it is. That's okay. It is hard, and it's okay to complain about it. It's hard. New things, especially if you're trying to, what's the best platform? Should I pay attention to Instagram? Years ago, people asked that. Now, so I pay attention to everything. So you should spend a little bit of time making fun of it or complaining about it, I should say, and then most of the time figuring out how to fucking do it. With me, it's like I'm around like people on the podcast or that are very good at it. So that's sort of how I get it done. I figured out by having them around, and that's just a small part of working with them, but that is a nice one to have. Like if I need something put on my phone, they're like they know what they're doing. Even with you, if I was here by myself and my significant other wasn't here, my girlfriend is a guy. I should let people know. I looked into it. It's all legal. But if he wasn't here, I wouldn't have been able to do this with you. because I wouldn't have known. I said no. He said just go to my emails. I have email, of course. I mean, I'm not horrible at it, but I went to my emails and he goes, no, I think you got to get an app. I go, no, he would have said that, wouldn't he? He goes, maybe not. And then we got the app and it said go to Facebook. I'm like, no, he wouldn't have made me do it. So I would have just not been able to do it, you know. But he was like, boom, boom,
I
boom.
really
It was done.
I really fucked up when giving you instructions for this, and I apologize.
No, I mean, I'm not that busy, so it's like I'm not. I can't. It was fine. I smoked a little bit in honor of 420. Normally, I don't smoke. No, I do. But I had a really good few hits of pot, and I feel great. I'm very relaxed. I feel very happy right now.
It's awesome. I forgot that it's 420. It's an actual holiday at this point.
Yes, it is. I mean, who doesn't need a holiday, right? I'll take any holiday. You know, the ones where you don't have to buy presents are the best.
I'm gonna start decorating for 420. I
Right
think
now, right.
like
Right, you're right.
yeah.
Like, you know, Halloween, they didn't used to have lights for Halloween when I was a kid. Then they figured out, you figure out decorations for 420, lights. You make things that, lava lamps that say, I don't know. I think it's a good idea. My friend said today on the phone, he goes, I'm surprised face masks, not that you want to see someone, you just understand from a promotion stance, not that it's a good thing or not, but he goes, I'm just oddly surprised that they haven't figured out how to make face masks like to look like a friend or a celebrity. You know, I'm like, you know what? You're right. So he patented it. No, I don't know what he did.
How, I'm sitting here right now wondering how many like business ideas are gonna come up on 420 in quarantine.
Yeah, I know. I know that we were saying that the other day that, things are bred. What's the expression, out of necessity? So there will be some. Hey, look, I'm not a religious person, but that doesn't mean that to me, but like instead of crediting it to religion, credit it to the good of mankind. Like we all know that people can be, unfortunately, very evil, but they can also be incredible. People can be amazing, and they talked about that a lot in the Mister Rogers in the movie and documentary. People can be at their best; they're incredible. People are amazing. So instead of looking at it like, oh, it's a God, I just look at it like good can come out of this. Of course, not because of a God or it was a plan, just because, back to what I said, the good of people, the best of people, we'll figure out were there any life lessons in this, was there anything, and not that you'll adhere to all of it 100% of the time. I know a month later we'll be right back where we're at, but not necessarily. I think some people will have some really, just because everybody doesn't mean there won't be a lot of people, hopefully, not hopefully, we'll get through this, and then on the other side of it, we'll all get our balance again, even though right now it's scary, and then we'll look at it from what was the good to take out of that. So other than that, I got nothing to say.
It's no. I wanted to talk like very specifically like about your career because it's you're the third comic I've had on this show. That's like the world I come from at a much smaller level, but I'm also sitting here and I'm like kind of blown away and that I'm talking to you right now. You got started back in the 80s as like the comedy boom. Like, what was that experience like? What was it,
I mean,
and how did it compare to doing comedy now?
I started. I mean, I know how to. I try to condense stories and get to the meat of them. I don't always do great at it, but and I love talking about comedy. I really do. I love comedians. I love new comedians. I love my old friend comedians. Comedians are a good breed. They can be a little weird. I don't always agree with everything they say, whether if they're political or social. But overwhelmingly, they're a great breed, and I like so many people in the comedy community. Like really have great affection for a lot of comedians. Um, and I still feel that way, and I still feel comedy's doing great. But I started. In high school, I didn't even know there were no comedy clubs in every city then. It wasn't a common thing, And then a friend of mine told me he went to a comedy thing, and it was a comedy club, and it's called the Comedy Works. And I thought, like, if I didn't know who you were, like, I thought there were only famous comedians. I didn't know there was this other level. uh, some of the comedians would come in like Jerry Seinfeld. Well, I knew of Jerry Seinfeld, but there was a lot of others. Anyway, I'm about ready to wrap this up. So we would go see comedy, and I went. It was great. We saw, like, before they were super famous. We saw, like, Paul Reiser and Stephen Wright and Richard Lewis and Gilbert Gottfried and Jay Leno and Jerry Seinfeld, Eddie Murphy, Roseanne Barr. It was, and I found out they had an open mic night, and I went, and I did good the first time, but that was just that first timer's luck. And I was like six. I was still in high school, and then this is where I can condense it. I never stopped. I did open mic night. I'd met so many. I had friends finally, like, like really close that I could. I wasn't into sports, so that's basically. I found out there was an open mic night, and I started performing, and then blah blah blah. At that level.
It is. I mean, there is like such a weird like sense of community to comedy scenes that it's like full of these people who like didn't find a community fucking anywhere else, and they're so different from each other, but you get so close doing mics and doing shows and like
You
traveling with
really do.
people.
You really do, and you meet a lot of cool people. And you know what? You asked me a question, and I apologize, but, like, so your specific answer is, it was a. I would have started comedy at any time. I would have been one of these people. I would have slept in my car, but I lucked out that during that period there was just so much work, and people got used to it. Like, you could be a no name comedian, never been on TV, and making a good amount of money. And there were one nighters, bar shows that would pay like $150, and there was a ton of those. And just in Philadelphia, there was like 5 comedy clubs, and they were all packed, pretty much. And so it was, and then that went away, and it became a different world, which is fine. You either got to learn about the new way it goes. I was already sort of, no, I wasn't past it. I was, like, I remember in the 80s, like, because I worked at a comedy club in like 82, 83. Even if someone had been on the Tonight Show, maybe they didn't even draw any more people. The comedy club a lot of times just drew because people came to that comedy club. And then when they had special events, yes, that was different with like Jerry Seinfeld or Jay Leno. So just because you did the Tonight Show, you got to pay hike now, which sort of makes sense, even though the old way was better. It was more fun for us. Now, if you don't, it's all about what you draw. It's all about what you draw. So things have changed in that sense, but uh, it was very easy back. Yeah, that was an easy element of it, and I lucked out that I got to ride that in my beginning stages of comedy, that I could grow and make a little money. It was really crazy.
It is. It is interesting. It's like there's still remnants of that like around. Like, I mean, we have a club here in town that like they still paper the room. Like the club is more of the draw than the act often is. And
No, I know. Yeah,
they fill the house.
no, that very much still goes on. What I meant was, um, uh, that then it was like these great comedians. Usually, when they're papering a room, you're not seeing the best of the best at those clubs that heavily paper. You know what I mean? And by the way, those
Yeah.
are rooms I work sometimes, so I'm not being insulting. I'm just saying, maybe, I hope I'm not. Maybe I am, and then I apologize. Yeah, because I think I know what I'm saying. I'm a little high. Not that that's an excuse, but yeah, I'm saying in those rooms sometimes where they paper it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. This was not a papered room. Back then, you really didn't have to paper. And you know what? When he started to have to paper, not to tell his story because I always tell it wrong, but the owner of that club, I think he saw a big decline in the audiences, and I think it seemed like it wasn't as enjoyable because all I remember is these audiences were unbelievable. They were so into the show. It was, people were just loving it. And again, it's still that way if you go to a good comedy club, or there's still great one nighters all over the place. So things change, and they're very much the same.
It is interesting like kind of how they change. I mean, just talking about that like concept of draw. Like I remember I went to a show. I saw Shane Moss in a brewery here in Tucson, and I really didn't know much about the guy, other than like another comic friend of mine was like, you got to check this out. And I mean, the place was fucking packed. I mean, you would have thought that you couldn't fit all the bodies into this place, and it's a huge room. And I had seen other more established, quote unquote, at that time comics come through. Half as many people, bought tickets to come in. And
Yeah,
it is. I mean, it was. I talked to him. I talked to him after the show. I mean, it was all this kind of social media push he had figured out. He had figured out how to like connect to people super directly who were, comedy fans in different areas. And I mean, he just like built this career this way.
yeah. I mean, some people did a good job at taking advantage of platforms that, it's easier if you get a deal with HBO because you don't have to do the work. Yeah. So if HBO calls and says, do you want a show? Yeah, it's easier if you get a, whatever the vehicle is today, Netflix or whatever, because you have people, but the truth is some people that just did it on their own and figured it out, especially when they're funny too. Like some people figure out the business of comedy and then maybe they're not funny, but they can still become pretty popular. And everybody deserves exactly what they get. I might complain about comedy, but I never blame where somebody else is at for where I'm not at. I might complain about their comedy, but I won't cross the line of going, yeah, I should have that. No, they have whatever they have because they deserve it. But I will also, on the positive end of it, some people figure out the business of comedy and are also really fucking funny, and that's fun to see always them succeed. Because they go, oh, they got, you're happy for them because you think they're funny and they found a platform and they connected to people. That's, I think, great that you can do that now.
You like you see these like stories and like these clips that tend to come out of like these established comics. I mean, just like dropping in on open mics and places and stuff. Is that still something that you do? I mean, do you still go workshop material in some shitty like back room of a bar, or is that just not something that you have
No, I mean,
to
I
deal
think,
with anymore?
I mean, believe me, I don't, genuinely don't even consider myself in that league because, I always get nervous if they say it. I'm always, what do you call it? I'm warmed. It warms my heart. But if somebody goes to give me a like, hey, this next guy, I'm always like, no, because then I'm always thinking in my head, seriously, that they think it's like Sarah Silverman or Patton Oswalt. They're like, and I'm like, or somebody is stopping in, like, so I get like, just say he's an open mic night act. But yeah, I mean, a lot of comedians do that, and you know what? It's good. It's good to do it. I mean, of course, I'm not going to go out of my way to do a shitty bar show. You know what I mean? Like I'm not going to drive there. Go, okay, they're calling you a month ahead, and then, but so you find out what the good ones are, and there's a lot of good ones in LA. Some people really do nice shows. They get it. Some aesthetic things. It's always aesthetic for me. Do you turn the lights down? And some really get it, and the more than one just get it. Some don't. So I'm not going to book ahead one of those. But if I happen to be like, let's say in Venice, and they go, Todd, there's an open mic night over there. Do you want to go up? Pretty much always. Pretty much always. I don't want to wait is what I don't want to do. They go, yeah, the show starts at 9. No, I want to go on with my night, not worry if I'm going to have a good set or a bad set. But it's fun. It's always fun, especially when they're good bar shows. I don't always be honest. Sometimes I try new material, but sometimes I just want to do good. I mean, I don't want to do 30-year-old material, but I mean, I don't care if I've done it for a year or two or three. I mix it with some new stuff. I want to do good. Like, especially when it's a bar show and they've trained these audiences. There's maybe 80 people just sitting there really watching the show like they were at a theater, but they're just at a bar. Just they happen to curate this great audience. That happens when you respect comedy. You don't let people yell, even if it's a bar show. You still have some rules, and then eventually you end up with one of those nights. Yeah, you want to do good in front of those crowds. You want them to be like, oh, he was fucking great. So sometimes then I just try to like I'll do a new joke. If it doesn't work, I go, okay, go to the best of.
You mentioned shitty bar shows earlier though, and like I gave me like so many flashbacks of like, I mean, fucking shows I've ran, to be honest, that have been absolute nightmares. What's the shittiest show you think you've ever been around though? What's the craziest bar show scenario that you've ever witnessed?
Just things like a window behind you. with people walking by. You know, it's like no one thought to put a piece of black material up. No one thought it was worth a $6 black sheet. No, nobody. I'm picking. I'm picking. You're right. People walking behind you. I feel like I'm turning into Bill Maher. You're right. No, I'm picking. Okay. No, because no one thought to get an $8 piece of material. Okay, no, you're right. Anyway, I do that good enough to do it bad, but not good enough to do it in my act. So it's out. Blackout. Um. So anyway, uh, so yeah, I mean, in LA, you know, you see a lot of comedians at all different levels, and the other good thing is, I think about going to those shows. I don't want to turn into a comedian that says, there's no good comedy anymore. And the way you turn into that person is by not being around it. And being around it isn't not being around it pretty much all the time, but then sniffing in once in a while at a scene. You know, a comedian that comes in, all right, I'll go check out what they're doing, and he stays for 10 minutes. No, you got to be immersed in a scene to know exactly what it is. So it also, and my instincts are when I go to shows or to leave right away. And I don't know why. I love hanging out with comics. So I force myself to stay because I'm always glad I did. And then you meet new comedians and you know who they are, you know, and then you know what the fuck you're talking about. So when somebody says blah 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 isn't what it used to be, you're armed and prepared, and you can say it. I've always said it. I always say it. I always defend. No, there's great comics still. Stop. But they'll go, who? Name some. And you know there are, because it just fucking makes sense. The comedy didn't end. Even if I'm not up on new music, I always defend it because it didn't end. Stop. It's seriously, it's a sickness that too many people have that consider themselves normal, that there's no good comedy anymore, there's no good music. Get a hold of yourself and just go, no, there is. Even if you heard the music that you like now for the first time, you wouldn't enjoy it as much because you have different troubles, you have different things have happened to you, you're in a different place. So that's fucking important to me. That's a reason to go to those shows and stick around. You'll end up talking to comedians. Comedians are fun to talk to. You're going to go outside. You're going to smoke pot. You always are going to have a great time. And you're going to know what the fuck you're talking about and what's out there for real. Ba, 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 ba. And by the way, I always say this because it reminds me, I swear to God, am I grand? I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm not grandstanding. I'm just saying it reminds me, yeah, that's why you do that.
No, but that's a fucking important reminder for like everybody, because I feel like life becomes this like slow death march of just sticking to whatever the fuck you were into when you were 23 otherwise, which is, you know, it's obnoxious. And I mean, it's what the fuck are you getting at that? You're
I
not you're
think
not experiencing anything new. You're not enjoying anything new.
you're not. Look, you can get set in your ways. You have to say everything very clearly because people hear it and they misunderstand you. But you 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 don't want to just get. I mean, people could do whatever they want. The problem is if they're set in their ways with their phone, if they're set in their ways with their furniture or the shoes they wear, that's really not affecting anybody else. But when you get set in your ways of not wanting about people's rights, no, that's not your, you know, and I think some people that do it are better than that. You just have to rattle people out of it. And I always feel like, I just said it again, I really think the kids today adage, I talk about it all the time. People are going to see me there. Some people that don't agree wish I would shut the fuck up. So I think it's worth answering the hypothetical question of why. I swear to you, I'm not being over dramatic. I think it is the demise of the world. The kids today adage, I think it cripples the world. It is so much more dangerous. And let me tell you something. I hope I live long enough when they figure it out, because we always do hindsight. We look back with clarity. We always do. We'll look back years from now with clarity. Sometimes it's 10, sometimes it's 20, with clarity, and they'll be like, oh my God, if someone unravels that. And good people listening to this show, I have a zero fucking tolerance for it because it's not true. It is a way to deal. Death is scary. It scares me sometimes. And I think if I could figure it out at my best with no degree or anything, it's a way they deal with this being scared of death. In other words, maybe that young person does have more time left to live, but at least, and you believe it, that You were born at a better time. Comedy was better, music was better, and you're like, it was. You got to admit it was. No, you're not out there. You're not out there. There are new bands that you would love if someone put them in front of your face. I guarantee it. Not me shoving a style down your throat that you don't like. You tell me what you fucking loved in the 70s and 80s. Unless you have a stick up your ass, I'll play something for you and you'll be like, holy fuck, this world exists. And if you get out of your own way, you could love all your own music and then be able to go. And there's a lot of good shit new. There's a lot of new shit. But you just want to make pretend, no, the comedy's not what it be. Music isn't what it used to be. Kids aren't what they used to be. The only thing fun about me getting older is I can defend kids and I'm not defending myself. They get smarter. It's an illness. I'm telling you, it's an illness to believe it. Anybody with some ration that thinks they can go inward and figure out when they're making mistakes right now should go, he's fucking right. And I always say you need to treat it like you're an alcoholic. You can't go, oh, I had one beer. I had one beer. Come on. That's how you need to treat this. You can't do it at all. You can't dip into that pool. You can't overwhelmingly agree with me, but then a month from now go, I agree with Todd. But no, you can't. You can't afford it. You're an alcoholic. You have one sip of the kids today, and it'll fuck you up. You know what? I got that out pretty good.
Yeah, that's actually, I think that's my favorite like answer that's ever happened on this show.
I felt, you know what? I feel this way. It bubbles inside of me, and I don't always get it out right. And I know I don't get it out right. It's your job to get it out right. It's your job to say it loving. I didn't say it that loving, but I could say it now. I could go, I telling you, if somebody agreed with me, your life gets better. Your life gets better. Trust me. I reap the benefits of, I think, wanting to have this theory that, I mean, for anything, I see kids for what they are. Who wouldn't want to do that, you know? And I'm not talking about every kid. I don't have to defend every kid. I'm defending the masses, the kids that are masses, you know, like, but anyway. Can
Well,
I
it's
go on a
also, it's
little,
like,
can I go get something and show it to you? Hold on.
please do.
I wrote this down, but you know, I try. I don't always stick to it, but in my act, I try to be funnier than preachy. And I cross the line and I want to be aware of it. I'm gonna turn that fan on. And I want to be aware of it. So I had this. I was going to work it into my act, but I go, you know what? I don't have it funny enough yet, and I'm really trying to be good with that. Podcasts are different. Podcasts are different. You can, but I wrote this thing down because I go, I never have bullet points, but I went. People are resistant to change, and I always say I want people. This is true. What I'm saying. It's not like people resisted picking up their dog shit. Now, when we hear that now, we're like, what? And you don't believe me, anyone that's like that I'm trying to compare that to today. I'm telling you, it was with the same exhaustion of someone learning about a transgender, community. You know, it's the same shoulders down. I lived it. I remember it. Hold on. It would be like, yeah, now you got to, not everybody, but a lot of people, now you got to pick up your dog shit. All right, that's what I want to do. Carry around. The city should take care of that. I mean, yeah, look, I get it, but they do it on mine, but I'm not. Now, how's it look? So you don't want to be the equivalent of, I got to pick up my dog shit. So I always think, it looks embarrassing. And I wrote this down with the masses. I always think like, what are not individual kids, but kids that got involved. They have a great history. They have a great history of being on the right side. And the way you defend your actions are not by making excuses that your theory doesn't make any sense. You listen to logic, and if what I say is logical, you stop saying that kids today, or whenever they're marching for something, they march. They had a lot to do with. These are the things I wrote down: fighting the Vietnam War, the sexual revolution, civil rights, Special Olympics. They were a huge part of the anti-nuclear march in New York City. Remembering the $500 students. They march. The list goes on and on. My reading skills don't. But I said this. I go, you remember the time you heard them march? Young people got all over the world. They marched so black and white people couldn't get married. Remember that? Obviously, it didn't fucking happen. What they march for, what they speak up for, and I know I might lose a lot of people here. So I say almost factually. If you had the resume the kids had and no one looked at it, you'd get fucking pissed off. And their resume, youth's resume, is unfucking believable. I think personally, my fucking opinion, but I think you can have an opinion based with facts that almost scientifically, whether the kids voted or not, even if it's their fault and they should have voted, the fact that the masses of kids wanted him, as science as you ever can put into anything, he was almost scientifically right. Maybe, you know what I mean? Charts, graphs, what the people that are saying that he should win? What's their history been? What's their history been? Every fucking time. Listen to them. Listen to them. Listen to those fucking kids. They've been right every time. But no, you're so scared that you're gonna live in. It really gets me going. And you know what? Good. No one's gonna find this footage in 10 years or 20 years and think I was radical. Nobody. No one's gonna find this. If they do and say, boy, that guy, they're going to go, oh, my God, that's how I guess you felt when you thought that back then. You know? And I don't even want any more people that are 90% on board. Those people are starting to bother me. They're overwhelmingly on board, but they come to me once in a while with a, you got to admit this. I don't have to admit shit.
It's true though. Like, I think at this point, I would take anything that any fucking 21-year-old told me about the world with like from a moral standpoint, probably with more fucking weight than I would anyone else. Because like young people are always fucking correct.
Yeah, we're not talking about when you have teenagers at your house and they're gone and that type. We're not talking about individual kids. And by the way, I'll defend them too. But I always think I'm safe because I say I'm defending the youth. What did the youth rally together? Not two people that might have been wrong. Not young people in Wisconsin, 8 people that were wrong. I'm talking about what they rallied for, not individual. When it turned into a rally, look at that history. And it's impeccable. It's impeccable. It's crazy. It's crazy how impeccable it is. You know, if I was if I owned a company, well, probably companies do this. So you know, I would go hire. You know, I would treat that as their resume and just hire a lot of young people always and listen to everything they say. And you know what? When you respect young people, they listen to you. And that's the problem. Old people go, well, don't we have anything to offer? Of course, old people have a lot to offer. Of course, the older you get, the more you have to offer. Only if you know that they have something to offer you, and not in a cute way. Oh, I know they have something. I'm talking they got a lot to fucking offer you. You respect that. That's when the most powerful force of nature we can go forward and make change. When old people respect young people, yeah, that can be fucking powerful. But when you start by going, the kids today, if you even have any wisdom, they're never going to hear it. Would you want to hear somebody that went, well, the problem with old people, the old people, oh, you ever meet old, if young people complained about old people verbally like they do, they would be like, what the fuck is wrong with them? Old people, oh, you know, old people. I don't mean to be one of those people about old people. Old people, they're such a pain in the ass. I know I don't want to be like that, but you got to admit, old people now, they get ugly. They're just so old. And then they just die. Or I hate to say it, but old people, that's what people sound like. Yeah, yeah.
We're closing out towards the end of the program. And you might have just fucking answered the question I like to end this with, but I want to ask it anyways. I always ask everyone, you know, throughout your whole life, both personally and through your career, you know, what's the thing that to you is the most important idea that you've ever wanted to convey to other people? What's the kind of central thing that you want to get across?
Well, yeah, you're right. It is that, and because that feathers into everything. That one adage affects history. It affects social growth. It affects comedy. It affects music. And by the way, a lot of comedians disagree with me. To me, this is almost my life's mission. I never would have said that 3 years ago. Oh, I just felt strongly about it. But now I went, no. If I'm right, I'm not even starting to scream loud enough. You know, if I'm right, if I go, yes, of course you're right. It's like, come on. It's just, then it affects everything and comedy and music. And so that's probably, and I always try to figure out nicer ways to say it because I figure yelling at people isn't going to change them. But I always have this fantasy that sometimes if you yell in the right way with enough facts, that somebody can go, that just made some sense. You know, there's defining moments. I'm always fantasizing what I could do to get into someone's head to have them unlock. And there's defining moments in your life where, you know, we all like to think we could self-analyze ourselves. If we all ask each other, like, hey, would you like to believe you're the type of person that could change if you had a theory, but someone really knocked it down with logic? You'd like to go, yeah, I'd like to believe that. Well, then you have moments where you have to prove it. And maybe it's cocky of me to think this is one of them for people that this got into their ears, that stop it already. And the most important thing is that dipping the toe into it. That's my new favorite thing to say, because it's like they're with me 90%, but they want to come to you. Like I said, no, you can't come and go. I had a little sip of, I did Coke. I did a teeny bit of Coke. If you are a Coke addict, you can't have a smidgen of Coke, and it makes sense when you. Same thing with you. Now, if you're gonna do this, you have to really strongly and aggressively change your mindset. For if you come up with reasons why I'm wrong, go ask somebody why you're wrong, because you're not seeing it right. So that's it right there. You know, that's my life. That's it. And then of course, I love to do stand up. That's my favorite thing in the world to do. And if I can, and thank God for podcasting, because I can get this out of me, and it's fun, and it makes you feel lighter. And then thank God for stand up, because, you know, I also like to be silly, and you know, and also if I can get it funny enough, I can throw it into the act. You know, that's why I hired a band on the last special. I said, well, if I'm going to be preachier than funny, I should have like a 7-piece band behind me. Da, 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 da. You know what I mean? And the whole band salutes me. So I figured out ways that I can stand the anger off of my yelling, you know. But I don't think I'm an angry person at all. I really don't. I'm angry about that. But I hope nobody would, you know, listen to old, you know, people trying to advance the world back in the future and go, ooh, they're angry. Yeah, you think I'm angry because you disagree with what I'm saying. People that agree with me are going, yeah, I get it. You know, he's angry. It should be. What he's saying is right. I think it does more destruction than what some people think. Oh, the unemployed, you know, people that are on unemployment, or people that are sucking off the system, people that are going. I think the adage of the kids today does more destruction than any of that. And I think it costs the taxpayer money, because, you know, if you're not kind to everybody that should be treated kind, you make their life bad. And some people you can put into depression. Some people are born with it. It's all over the place. But there are definitely people in this world. There is a group of people that if the world was more loving and open-minded and wasn't, oh, now with this thing I got to learn about, it all goes into that camp. These people would live a better, cleaner life and wouldn't be killing themselves in their heads, and then they wouldn't be on some medicine, and that would cost. So it costs the taxpayer money. The kids today adage and not wanting to learn anything new, it's really dangerous, and it's really, really, really dangerous. I'll be honest with you. If someone said, Todd, you know who's as angry as you? I would go, thank God. But I'm not saying this in any. Yeah, I'm just being honest. I don't know anyone as angry as me. I don't know anyone talking about. Angry is not the right word, because even though I get worked up, I'm not cursing, and well, I was cursing. So I'm angry.
Yeah. But I think it's okay to be. I think it's a righteous anger, which I think is something very different. Your anger on behalf of people,
You know,
not angry at them.
can I tell you something? I appreciate that. I appreciate that,
Absolutely.
because I don't just appreciate it because it got me out of feeling like maybe I wasn't being, like, you know, I don't want to be an angry person. It's not the type of person I think I want to be, but yeah, it is in defense of other people, and it's not me talking to my significant other or my parents. I'm amazing with that. Like, I have worked a lot at that too over the years, and couples counseling, and I know how to communicate real well. But someone said this is like you're yelling into the canyon, and I think you get excited when you're yelling into the canyon of podcasts, you know. But I do have to remember that there are people listening on the other side, and the ones that agree with you, that disagree with you, certainly aren't going to change their opinion if you're yelling at them. So, you know, I apologize, but I meant everything I said. I just wish I would have. Maybe I could figure out different ways to say it, but maybe I'm saying it fine too. So we'll let the results show.
You know what? There's always going to be one person who, like, you need to sweet talk into an idea, and then there's like another person you need to smash in the back of the head with it. It's it's just a different way of conveying what you have
Yeah.
to say.
One more
And
quick thing.
frankly, I'm glad
One
you
more
did.
quick thing. I always have this thing I get fantasized to say to the comedians that get caught up with this. You know, the kids today are comedy's not what it used to be. I always want to seriously. I always fantasize like sort of hugging them and going, trust me. If you listen to me, you're gonna get to have a longer career. You know, like I have to explain to you. I know why you think you can't say anything anymore. I get it. You have to get into their head. I get it. There's some topical words you can't say. Trust me, if you would take an honest look of what you can say now, and that comedy is represented by more people ever in the history of comedy, all types of people, it still needs to go really, really further, but we're better than it used to be. You know, men, women, gay, straight, transgender, you know, and you can talk about being gay and then go back to your act if you want. It used to be if you were gay, you better talk about it your whole show because you can't just drop that bomb in the 80s 2 minutes into your set and then go on. And if the comedians did, they were fucking brave as fuck. But most of us, you know, we just kept it a secret. And you can talk about that. You can talk about believing in God. You can talk about not believing in God on TV. You can talk about depression. So I'm telling you, the ones that think you can't say anything anymore, comedians, people, I get it from afar. It does look like that, but it's because you got caught up on a few words. And if you would go, yeah, you know, you can do it. You're not going to go to jail. I don't think anyone should go to jail. People should say whatever the fuck they want. Every comedian should always say what they want, but you pay some price for it, and that's what makes it brave. You know, people go, oh, you can't say anything anymore. Yeah, people resist what you're saying, and there's more platforms to resist. That's good. I wish comedy had a little more policing in the 80s. You wouldn't have seen some of the horrific things. Yeah, in the 80s, you saw brilliant fucking comedy. Tons of it. But you also saw not even racist on the scale from 1 to 10. Racist for someone that often calls out racism. Somebody who goes, you know what, every time they say it's racist, I'm always like, I don't know. That person would watch the stuff done in the 80s and go, what the fuck? What the fuck? So there's nothing wrong with a little policing. And sometimes they're wrong. Sometimes people go after a comedian and they're wrong. And that it's good that a comedian just does what he wants to do and ignores it. But they're not always wrong. They're not always fucking wrong. I think the outcry of why are you doing that joke? Go back and watch comedy from the 80s. So I say to those comedians, if you'll just get out of your own way and go, it's a few words, maybe you get shit for saying, but look at what you can say, you're going to be happier. If I'm right, you know you're going to be happier. If I can convince you that comedy's in a better place, you ask somebody, would that make you happy? Well, it's hard for them to go no. And they go, yeah. You know it wouldn't. So why don't you give me a listen, and you're going to end up being able to tell a story that in 2020 you shifted. You could be one of those people that's racist, or you know, we hear stories about people that were in the Ku Klux Klan that tell their people make. And I only make that comparison because it's a huge shift change. So is being a comedian or a person that basically, you don't have the kids today. You can't do anything anymore. Comedy sucks. Music sucks. Nothing's what it used to be. Yeah, that shift of thinking that way and then going my way, it's a big fucking shift. It's like almost like someone getting off drugs. It's powerful. They are used to it. It brings them comfort, just like drugs. It brings them comfort. So to get them off of it is hard. But people do amazing things. So it's just as possible for someone to tell a story. They go, yeah, I thought that way. And in 2020, I fucking stopped it. The best fucking thing I ever did. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I play myself off. Thank you very much.
All right. That was Todd Glass. Thank you so much for joining us, Todd.